Okay, hello and welcome to the first installment in InventoryLab web series that we're really excited to launch today. Several of the InventoryLab team members are former service members, as well as a spouse or partner of a service member. In fact, Angie, one of our customer champions, her husband Zach, she's counting down the weeks until he returns from being deployed. She'll be joining us for the live Q&A that we're going to have on January 29th. We'll give you more information about that later. First, I am really excited to welcome two of our amazing guest speakers and friends, and really the inspiration behind the launch of this series. We're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. Jimmy, if you'd like to introduce yourself first.
Hey, I'm Jimmy. I'm a 15-year Navy veteran, and now I'm a full-time Amazon seller, e-commerce person.
And Ryan, you want to say hi?
Hey, my name is Rayan. I'm a 10-year Navy veteran, been around the world, and now I am a, say, three-quarter time to full-time FBA seller.
And I'm Jeff Campbell, one of the customer champions.
And my name is Kim McCaffrey. I'm the Customer Learning and Development Coordinator. Jeff and I had a really great time at eCom Chicago in 2017, just last October. Seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But we happened to run into Jimmy and Ryan, and I think we all talked until it was pretty late at night. We were just kind of like shooting the breeze. And I happened to mention my background in the nonprofit sector and kind of talked about my grant being dismantled and had been selling on eBay, but stumbled onto the concept of Amazon FBA and how I kind of floundered, for lack of a better word. And Jimmy, you kind of said, I have a very similar background, that was kind of the way that you came to Amazon FBA as well. And we kind of shared some stories, and all four of us kind of had a little bit of a similar component kind of happening. And about 1 o'clock in the morning, we decided to call it a night because we had the conference the next morning. But Jimmy, we ran into each other the next day, and I think I said something like, "Hey Jimmy, I had some thinky thoughts. Have you ever considered the idea of making a space for that conversation to happen, or generating that conversation, or creating resources specific to service members?" Because after we had talked, I kind of went to my hotel room and I started looking around and looked at available resources and looking at resources not just available from within the Amazon seller community, but even through the U.S. military. And I really wasn't finding a lot, and really quickly found that the voice of service members, those men and women, weren't really represented, and could not stop thinking about it the rest of the evening, and couldn't wait to see you the next day to just say, hey, what would you think about starting that conversation? And so the four of us have become friends ever since then, and kind of followed up with you not too long ago and said, hey, have you given that any more thought at all? And here we are to kind of start that whole conversation. So you're both originally, you had served in the Navy, transitioned out of the Navy. And Jimmy, tell me a little bit about your business. Are you primarily OA, RA? What's your business model?
I would say 60 to 75% I do RA, and then the other is OA currently.
Nice. And what about you, Ryan?
I'm primarily the same. However, I decided to kick off 2018 to fully focus on going wholesale, trying to scale up the business. So it's challenging, but I can see the potential in it.
Yeah, that wholesale is always is like a goal. That's always kind of like a tipping point almost, that folks like, a good number of folks identify as like that tipping point. Like, I just want to be able to get to wholesale. Yeah, I know. I looked at it a few different times, but I can tell you, for me, I missed the thrill of the hunt. There's still the,
Well, no, it's still there. It's just it's a different thrill.
Yeah.
Instead of finding that product on the clearance shelf, it's kind of like, okay, landing that account.
That's a good point. That's an excellent point. Very cool. So Jeff, I know you and I have been really, we've been talking about this probably daily, sometimes hourly, ever since October. Do you want to talk a little bit more about our goal for the webinar and really the webinar series?
Yeah, so since October, when we first met Jimmy and Ray, and we have been talking about this quite a bit. And we noticed, with the research that you've done, Kim, that there really aren't too many relevant resources for current and former service members that are interested in getting into the e-commerce field. And this is, something that any of them can do and be a success at. And I think that's what we wanted to go with this series, is just to show the opportunity that that is out there.
Yeah, because really that was one of the big things that we found, is that the opportunity even is not made readily available. And then as
Right.
as we learned, and what we're going to be talking about, that and everybody that's ever been an Amazon seller knows, when you first start out, there's a lot to kind of figure out along the way. And sometimes you make
Pretty
some
overwhelming, when you get in.
Yeah. I think
trying it on your own is pretty overwhelming. So
yeah, I think Jimmy and I, when we were comparing notes, when we were talking outside of the venue in Chicago, that we both were like, yeah, remember like the 150 tabs at the top of your browser, watching like every video, reading every article, and never, you never know really who to trust. And we all kind of look back and we realized that we, took the advice from some pretty untrustworthy people, unsavory, if you will. Okay, Jimmy, if you would go ahead and get us started, tell us a little bit about your background with the U.S. military as a service member and ultimately e-commerce.
Yeah, so I joined the Navy in 1993. I served 15 years. And that's a kind of a rough one. Once you've hit the 10-year mark, it's like, maybe I want to retire from this thing. And I got to 15 years, and I really didn't know if I wanted to stick it out, but wasn't having a good time anymore. So I thought the best thing for me to do was to leave the service. So I separated from the Navy in May of 2008.
So Jimmy, when you transitioned out, was there a process that you had to go through? Was there a support structure that was there for you exited the service?
Oh, you were breaking up just a little bit there, Jeff. I think what Jeff's asking, when you were transitioning out, is there like a red carpet rolled out with like lots of great resources and information about, how to establish your career post service member career?
No, I mean, about the 6 months mark of you ending your obligated service, you start transitioning out. And one of the big things they push is, hey, you need to go to TAP class, which is the Transition Assistance Program. And that's a week-long course where you go in and they basically teach you how to write a resume. You sit down with your peers and you do mock interviews. But as far as resources to, hey, this is where you go find a job, there's really not anything left or anything like that they have. So you're kind of left on your own to go out. And I mean, some people get out and they're thousands of miles away from home, and it's like, well, do I stay? Where do I go now? You know what I mean?
So not only is it not even information about how to find a job, but it's interview skills, resume skills, but definitely nothing about being an entrepreneur or launching a new business. Nothing like that.
I never even dreamed of owning my own business. I was, hey, I'm getting out. I got to replace the paycheck with the paycheck.
Yeah.
So I need to get a job.
Not even one of the multiple choice answers. Yeah. So I know ultimately.
So your mindset is basically just going right into the job, right?
Yes.
I know ultimately you ended up accepting a position as a contractor. Is that right?
Yeah, I took a position with a government contractor. Lucky for me, I had a skill set that was marketable. I mean, there are a lot of junior sailors. I mean, when you sit down and you join the Navy, they give you a list of jobs that you qualify for based on test scores, and you pick one. And you really don't think about it. I mean, whenever you're 18, 19 years old, you don't think about what am I going to do in 4 years, 8 years, 12 years from now. So I got lucky and I took a job with my skill set. It was a very good job, and I worked there for about 8 years. And then in 2015, there were some issues with the contract I was on, and I didn't get brought back. And I was kind of just like in the Navy. Hey, here's your last paycheck. You know, in the corporate world, hey, here's your last paycheck. Good luck.
Wow.
And you'd started doing some eBay stuff a little bit before that, or was that right after?
Yeah, I mean, lucky for me, I used to be in sports cards really big. So I did a lot of buying when eBay was in its infancy. And then I actually started selling as a hobby, just toys, cards, stuff like that, just collectible stuff. So, and we, you know, that brought in a decent amount of money. But once again, it was just a hobby. It wasn't because I had to, it's because it's something I like doing. So.
And then the concept of selling on Amazon, was that after the contract was ended, or was that right before?
Yeah, it was after, definitely after. I'd kind of resolved that to replace my income, I was going to start selling on eBay full time. And magically, my wife, who never had any interest in my eBay sellings, came to me and was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of fulfillment by FBA or fulfillment by Amazon, FBA?" And I was like, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." And so she kind of introduced me to that idea.
Wow.
How did she hear about it? Do you know?
I don't remember exactly how she found out about it, but as a faith-based person, I believe that the good Lord was really looking out for us, and that's just something that He blessed her to find that has ultimately really blessed our family. So I'm pretty glad she found it.
Yeah, right?
So the contractor stuff, was that close to where you were last stationed then, and you just took it there, or you had to actually move from that spot to a whole new area for the contractor job?
No, it was in the same area. I mean, it's in the DC area,
Oh.
so I mean, it was close. I ended up moving like 75 miles from where I lived.
But you weren't
Okay.
able to move back to your original home, correct?
No jobs there.
Yeah.
Nothing I did would have translated. So,
And you said that that's not unusual, right? That's often the case. Service members that are transitioning are kind of limited geographically to where.
yeah, I think so.
Okay. So you were in the Navy for a decade and a half and got out of the Navy near where you were stationed, and you found a contract position. That lasted for a few years, and then that ended suddenly. And so along comes Amazon and fulfillment by Amazon, and gave you a whole new career path.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind
Actually,
of
more of a career path. Unless it's more of a whole new. I mean, you're becoming an entrepreneur now. You're not just, you just don't have a job. It's your business.
yeah. I think that the biggest thing for me was the fact that Amazon opened my eyes, and it forced me to do something that the world says that you shouldn't do, and that's to take a chance. And I've always wanted to own a card shop. That was always a dream of mine, was to have a card shop. I always envisioned going back to my little town I grew up in and owning a card shop. Well, there's not enough people to support a card shop. There's no jobs that work with my skills in my hometown. So I stayed where I was. I got a job with the skills that I had. And, you know, when I lost my job, we lost 75% of our income. It was a very scary day when you walked in and you heard those words. And I just decided that when that happened, that I was going to do something about it, and I was going to make something work. And then, you know, along comes the FBA opportunity with Amazon, and it's really opened a lot of doors for us as a family. So, I mean, you know, I had to do something difficult. I had to make a decision of, you know, how we were going to survive. And, you know, my initial goal was to cash out my retirement plan. And my wife didn't want to do that. She was very against that. And I was like, look, I mean, I can't retire if I can't make it to retirement. So we have to do something. So I cashed out my retirement. I threw it at my business, and so far it's been really good.
I know when we first started talking about doing this project with you, when we first met, I said, what were your goals for starting the business? Was it to be more connected to the community, to have a business with your family? And you were very clear. You said it was survival. You said it was absolute survival. I thought that was a powerful point, and really helped me understand that moment. 75% loss of the head of household's income, and the fear that both you and your wife must have felt, and then having FBA then to be that opportunity and to make that, like, I'm going for it, it's
right.
huge. I know, like, when we talked before, talk a little bit about moving into that. So, like, you and I both had all of, like, the hundreds of tabs open up at the top, and what were those early days as an e-commerce entrepreneur? What did those look like?
Yeah, I mean, it was really scary because I didn't know much about running a business. And like I said, my wife came to me and, Tammy's like, hey, you should look into this. And I was I'm an eBay guy, and I know that, right? And I don't like change. A lot of people don't like change. And when I even started looking at Amazon, I was like, all right, I'll start looking for stuff to sell on Amazon, but, eBay is going to be my bread and butter. And she was like, okay. And I found that the more that I was out looking, it was like, man, this FBA thing is legit. And so, we gathered up some inventory, and around June of 2015, we sent our first shipment in. And we've been going strong ever since. So Tammy helped out a lot when we first started, but once I really got the hang of it, she kind of transitioned, does her own thing, and now I strictly handle the FBA portion by myself.
So you probably did, what everybody does, you kind of make mistakes and you have to pay for them, and it costs you time and that sort of thing. You do have to tell me, I have to ask, at what point did you start using InventoryLab?
Well, when we did our research, Tammy stumbled on to, I think her name's Tracy, I don't recall, Entrepreneur Girl. That's who Tammy watched.
I love Entrepreneur Girl.
Yeah, and just doing research, it's like, hey, these are some of the tools that you need. So from the get-go, we started using InventoryLab because we thought that would be the easier way, and we thought that it offered the best options. And pricing wise, you're starting out, you don't have a lot of money to spend on software, and also keeping up with your inventory, ease of listing, stuff like that. That's, so right away, right out, our first shipment we did with InventoryLab.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah, which was really scary, the first shipment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think I must have spent like 5 weeks just trying to figure out FNSKU labels through Seller Central. And it was only at that point that I realized I couldn't print them on the Dymo printer I had just purchased. I was near tears by that. I almost walked away at that point. Oh, we lost Jeff. Oh, he's back. There he's back.
Yeah, well, doing your first shipment is really scary.
Yeah. Mine was 16 hours long. Through Seller Central, 16 hours from start to finish. It was terrible.
Well, we got all of our stuff ready and in the box, and it's kind of like, what do I do now?
Now what?
So we had to go watch a video. It's like, do I put this in the box? Do I put this piece of paper in the box? What do I do with this piece of paper? I had no idea because I was on an island by myself, and once again, filtering through all of this stuff, and it's like, who's right, who's wrong?
Yeah. And I know, like, so
yeah, was that a good purchase? Was that a bad purchase? I
Right.
know for us, it was like, should I buy this? I looked at the same product probably 10 times, walked away from the table, came back, walked away, came back, finally bought it.
I quickly learned to not buy cell phone accessories. That was a very expensive lesson for me. As a matter of fact, I boxed up today some of my first cell phone accessory purchases, and I'm like, I'm finally going to take this to Goodwill because I can't get rid of these things.
let it go. Just let it go, brother. Just
It's like nobody has an iPhone 5 anymore, 4, whatever the accessory was for. So yeah, there were some hard lessons because once again, it was just me.
And you learned them in a really short period of time because you started in April, first shipment went in June. Still doesn't sound like a whole lot of time, but at the rate that you were going, driven by the need, survival, you packed a lot of probably costly mistakes, not just money, but time, into a very short period of time. But then gained traction. I think when we talked before, it was about 6 months that you gained some traction finally, right?
Yeah. Once you can find the tools that are out there that are free to use and that you actually learn how to use them, they really can help you, like understanding what the sales rank is for an item in a product. I mean, once you can figure that out and you can kind of get a good idea of how well something sells, and so, yeah, like 6 months in when I had some free time, I was able to figure some of this stuff out, and I joined the mastermind group for a short period of time, just because even though we were having some success right away, there was always that, am I really doing this right? So let me join the mastermind group. And it costs like $50 a month, but we were only in it for like 6 months, and then, with that leadership, it was kind of like, yeah, we're doing this right. We just, I just have to keep putting the time in because, in this business, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So kind of moving to Rayan a bit, you also kind of found yourself in the same situation, right? Transitioning from the Navy.
Similar. I did 10 years, and then I got out. I was actually on the same government contract as Jimmy, and they let me go a little bit before him. And I was kind of quickly thrown an opportunity to basically run a auto repair garage. I'm not a mechanic. I can manage anything, but I'm not a mechanic. And I did quite well. I mean, it was a very small space, and I pretty much maxed the capacity out. However, there was some issues with the landlord. Rent kept going up. The overhead just started killing me to a point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. I had reached my ceiling, and I was just getting squeezed and squeezed. The expenses were getting higher. The revenue coming in was not. So I had to throw the flag in on that one. And then I was kind of trying to figure out what to do. By that point, Jimmy had gotten into FBA, and he had told me about it. I'm like, what is this? I buy from Amazon all the time. Jimmy, I don't think he had bought too much from Amazon. I bought everything off Amazon. I'm like, what are you talking about, third-party seller? I don't even know what that is. I buy from Amazon. Amazon sends it to me. He's like, no, go and look. There are sellers. There are different sellers. And I remember, like, I'm like, okay, he lit the fire. And then it's like, okay, I'm at the store one time, and I'm like, I call him up. I'm like, Jimmy, dude, man, I found this thing. It was like on clearance for 50 cents and it's selling for $4 on Amazon. Man, look at that profit margin on that. And he's like, don't do it. That's one of the lessons you learn. I'm like, I didn't realize that, Amazon's going to charge you up. You're going to, I'm going to take a loss on that. But it was one of those things. I'm like, okay. And then as I got into it, I remember my first sale. It was a set of hangers from Target. But as it grew and grew, and Jimmy's correct. What you put in is what you're going to get out. It is not easy. Okay, so you got these courses. You got these people telling you, oh, sit on the beach and make tons of money and do this and that. No, it's
looks
not
so easy.
Yeah.
It's
No, it's
passive income.
yeah, no. It is a job. It is a career. Now the thing I noticed with it though, it is pure entrepreneurship. I mean, the sky is the limit. You know, you will meet people in this industry, in this business, that they've they might have started an FBA and now they're just doing this, or they're doing that, or they have an engineering background, now they're creating a software now, or just whatever it may be. People that started in FBA, RA, OA, like me and Jimmy, and have transitioned to now they're making their own products in China and having them shipped over private label. So, I mean, that's where I am. Yeah. Kind of. But so, it's a tough road. Like I said, it's not easy, but I think the military taught us that we don't give up, and you just keep pushing. But anything worth it is not going to come easy.
Right. Yeah, there's actually a lot of data about that. In preparing for the webinar, I just looked into service members and entrepreneurship and resources. According to the most recent U.S. Census, veterans own 7.5% of the nation's 5.4 million businesses with employees. According to SCORE, which is one of the organizations, 1 in 4 U.S. veterans buy or launch a business or are seriously considering it. And in 2011, a study was done by the Small Business Administration. The Office of Advocacy found that veterans are 45% more likely than non-veterans to become an entrepreneur. So service members are wired to be entrepreneurs. I think that's a given that a service member would be able to encompass that role and feel comfortable in that role. But at the same time, again, like the research and preparing for this, I looked at what resources were available to service members, and there is a lot. There's a lot of grants that are out there, and people that that have put things together that can hook you up with mentors. There's Veterans Business Outreach Center, the VBOC, Boots to Business program. Small Business Administration has a branch exclusively for service members. There are franchises that will give a reduction on franchise fees for service members. The list goes on and on, but and Jimmy, I kind of bounced a little bit off of you that some of these resources, or really most of the resources, they're kind of difficult to access. Like that red carpet's not rolled out. Like, here's all of the information you need to know about starting a new business. It's just one of those things that it's not made readily available. But even like with that, at the same time, some of the information that I did come across also, it didn't quite sit right with me. I kept seeing the same things over and over and over again on a lot of the resources, and things I saw were, here are all of the different professions that you can go into. Or if you want to start a new business, click here. So you would click there. And over again, I saw that you should buy a franchise, become a government contractor, or, which I found really interesting, open a retail shop. I saw over and over and over again. And and that's great. If that's what somebody wants to do, that's fine. But it does not meet the modern definition of what it means to start a business. And Rand, you kind of were saying a little bit about this, that, that it's what you put into it. And, back in the day, like back when, we were all, even like just in our 20s, to start a business meant that you had to risk everything. You had to put 6 months worth of income on the line. You could lose your house. It really was huge. But that's not Amazon. It can $200 and you can start a business and build it into what you want it to be, keep it as small as you want it. So I was kind of getting some contradicting messages from what I was seeing about the information that service members are given about starting a business. I
think the scariest part, though, for service members when it comes to starting a business is, we're so used to, we lived our life day in, day out, certain structure. We knew exactly what we're wearing every day. We knew exactly what was going to happen every day. We had that structure for 7 days a week. We knew, okay, we do this, we do that. This is how we do it. This is how we have to cut our hair. This is how we have to shave. This is how, lady, everything. Okay. And then you get out into the real world. And I mean, the military and the government, they try, like as Jimmy said, they try and help. But I mean, there's a deadline. You have this date. That's it. You're out, whether you got it or you don't, whether you understand what they're telling you or you don't. Goodbye. Okay. And when you lose that, I think that's the biggest, it's like a rude awakening. You wake up the next day, you see all these guys, okay, it's cool for the first month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. They can grow a beard finally or whatever. But then it's like, oh no. I mean, that was, even I had a job. When I had transitioned out, I had gotten a job, and I'm like, this sucks. It's just, it was really just about getting a paycheck. There was no objective. There was no mission. It was kind of just punching a clock. You're there to make the company money. Even like on a government contract, you're there to make the company money. It wasn't about looking after the guy next to you. That's gone. But so, like I said, with entrepreneurship, it's like, imagine, you potentially have a sports car, but there are no lanes. You can go in any direction you want as fast as you can handle it.
Yeah.
So
that was one of the things.
Well,
Go ahead. Sorry,
I was just going to add that, listening to the statistics and reading the statistics, I don't know many service members who can financially get out and start a business.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you have a family. I mean, you leave the service after 4 years. I mean, most likely the highest rank you are is a P5. I mean, this is enlisted. I'm just looking at the enlisted guys, and I just don't know anybody who can go out and buy a Subway franchise, even if you're getting a discount.
Definitely.
It still takes a lot of capital.
Yeah,
that's what struck me when Kim was going through all that was, that's nice if you can open a retail shop. You still got to come up with all this upfront money or a franchise upfront money, and even the resources, you got to learn about how to do it and all of that. What did you guys find as far as the resources? I mean, it's pretty readily available if you're starting an FBA business.
I never found any resources easy to access. I mean, people would point me in directions. I would go to where they pointed me to, and it was just like talking to a wall. Get in line behind all the other veterans they're waiting to serve.
No, I meant as far as I understand that. I meant as far as getting into FBA, and it seems like there's a lot of free blogs and recordings on YouTube and that sort of thing that cover a lot of the different aspects of FBA, and so that stuff it's like all over the net. Whereas,
that's how Jimmy actually, he pointed me, he's like, go look up, was it Entrepreneur Girl or something? You told me to look at the videos.
Yeah.
Everything is out there, and that one is actually easily accessible. You're going to have people that are going to offer to sell you courses on how to sell FBA and how to sell on Amazon and eBay and make $1 bazillion a year. And to learn the basics, just go to YouTube, man. You'll find everything you need.
That's kind of one of the things that I really liked about your stories and why I wanted to kind of bring it all together, because Jimmy had gone through that trial period and found what worked and what didn't, was able to sort through all of it, and then kind of almost bring you like right into like this nice clear path. He kind of trailblazed all of that stuff out of the way, and instead of the 150 tabs was able to say, this person creates reliable content. She's diligent, she's brilliant, she's really brings together information that's going to be helpful. Don't waste your time. On all of that other noise, it was so great to have that person on the inside that had already been there before you to kind of bring you through, but also that support, like when you're talking about like transitioning out, like all this time you've known what to anticipate and what to wear and how to cut your hair, and your job was to watch the back of the guy or the woman next to you, and then now being able to reconnect as entrepreneurs and watching each other's backs, and Jimmy, you knowing that he might need an option and you were able to throw that information out to him, and then also censor all of the stuff, all the noise, and make sure that he only had, the good information in his path. When we were talking initially, you had said that Ray had come over one day, like, okay, fine, tell me about this Amazon FBA thing, and saw your setup. And Ray, and he was saying that you just took pictures, like, yep, I'll get that printer. And like, you're like taking pictures, and you're like, I'm going to get it all done. Like the time just in that one visit that was saved is, what a support, like what a service that is. But I kept diligently looking for resources from the military that would be similar, and I couldn't find it. And it's never because it's not for they don't want people to access it, but in my previous work and working extensively with the U.S. military, just knowing that there's not a lot of time, there's never a lot of money for resources, and to put things in place that are easily accessible, there's always going to be people above that make it harder. Like, well, no, that's grant funded, and we have to capture all of this data, and it just gets all muddled. And especially if you're in survival mode, you don't put a form in front of me. I need actionable, detail, but definitely not financially feasible. Like, go out and buy a franchise. This is a great idea. Like, well, you can get a discount on your franchise fees. Well, that means it's $42,000, but now it's $38,000. Great. That's, but it also doesn't really kind of support some of the goals. Like a lot of times within the Amazon community, people have certain goals in mind, to be able to spend more time with their families. That's a big part of being an entrepreneur, to have that sense of autonomy, or, a franchise or opening a retail shop or being a government contractor is counterintuitive to all of that. You think you spent time away from your family before, short of deployment, this is going to be second runner up to not spending time with your family and not reconnecting, especially after transitioning from the military. I kept looking and I kept looking and I kept looking, and I just kept finding information that was more and more disheartening. We were talking earlier, the four of us, about predatory practices, predatory marketing even, towards service members. Jeff, you and I talked about it pretty extensively, and their PBS Frontline did an expose a while back about predatory practices, specifically for college or for-profit colleges for transitioning active duty Marines. It was really just a terrible story. Predatory lending, buy here, pay here, used car sales apparently are pretty notorious. But Jeff and I, we've talked pretty extensively that we even kind of kept this webinar series pretty quiet up until this point, because there is such a lack of resources available for service members. We were afraid, like, oh man, if this gets out, this could be like an untapped market. Somebody's going to have a course, a paid course ready before the end of, before the sun goes down. And so Jeff, you and I, we talked pretty extensively about that, and how to make sure that service members, are the ones that create courses or content. And Ray, and you had talked about that a little bit earlier when we were chatting about that too.
It's all out there.
Yeah.
Like I said, you don't need to pay anybody to learn the basics.
I think that's also one of the other reasons for this series is to, especially after what you found in the predatory practices for veterans and service members, that stuff is out there, and it's very easily available, but it's easy to get kind of sidetracked by, somebody talking pretty slick to you and a supposed expert, especially when you've never heard of it.
I mean, yeah, there's lots of information out there, and I would just add that, yeah, there's lots of free stuff, but there are some legitimate people who offer legitimate content that you can pay for. So I wouldn't say everybody's out to rip everybody off, but you got to be very selective.
I would learn the basics. I mean, like, it's not hard to learn the basics on your own. Once you get a feel for the basics, and then you want to, okay, you know what? I understand how this FBA world works. Let me get some specific. Let me join a what's it called? A masterminds group. Maybe a buy list here or there. Maybe this special software. This might be worth it.
Yeah, that's true.
But the thing is, I mean, if it's the hardest part is when it comes to service members. Just throughout my career, even when I was with them, they don't understand if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Because I've seen a lot of young guys, they've gotten suckered into just bad deals, buying the 2000 Dodge Neon for $35,000 or what was it? I'm sure you remember, Jimmy, at the mall, there was buy a camera and get unlimited film developing for the rest of your life for $2,000.
Right.
It was like $100 camera.
So then when Jimmy approaches you and he says Amazon FBA, and you're like, what are you even talking about? You didn't have that kind of skepticism for obvious reasons, but can you kind of speak to why you didn't have that, like, oh, that might be shady? You didn't approach that the same way.
Because I knew Jimmy. I mean, I'd known Jimmy for a while, and I knew that he always sold on eBay. Okay, so I'm like, okay, but eBay and Amazon, to me, they are two different worlds. Two different worlds next to each other, but they are two different worlds.
But you didn't have that same red flag get thrown up, though, because it was a fellow service member, somebody that you knew that you could trust. So you didn't have to filter it out, to see if that was affinity marketing
Not someone coming saying, hey, pay me $2,000 or pay me $500 and I'll tell you how to do this, and that.
Right.
He just kind of said, hey, you should look into this, man. Check this out. And it sparked my interest. I mean,
if somebody that was not a service member, somebody that you didn't have that in common with, had approached you and said the same thing, how would that have played out different?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of scared. Like, there are certain things like, I know I can rely on Jimmy for more things than I can, let's say, a friend of mine from the neighborhood, or I know that I can go incognito for months and months at a time and come back, and me and Jimmy will be like, okay, we saw each other just yesterday. I think there's a level of trust and respect amongst service members. Like even now, like even when if I'm run into someone, if they're former military, that's it. There's this mutual respect we have.
It's that camaraderie. We're banded together, and that's one of the great things about being able to do this with Ray. And I can call him at any time and say, "Hey, I'm looking at this. What do you think?" And the same thing. I'm having an issue. He'll call me. And I think that's the thing. That's what I miss the most about the military. That's the thing I miss most about where I used to work. I don't miss the jobs, because I love having the freedom to do what I want now, and I can take this any way I want to. But I miss seeing Rand every day. I miss seeing my buddies, and just having that sense of unity. Knowing that we're all there, we're going to accomplish the same mission. So it's good to actually work with Rand, and I think it's made our friendship stronger. I think we trust each other a lot more. I have never distrusted Rand, but I know that if he tells me to do this, that if he wouldn't do it, he wouldn't tell me to do it, and vice versa. If I didn't think it was a good idea, or if I think it's a bad idea, I tell him, and and it works for us.
One of the things about this business, because in my opinion, the overhead is minimal. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not paying when you're starting off, you're not paying rent. You're not paying, you pay for your Amazon account and like your software, InventoryLab, and I think that's pretty much it. Buying boxes but you literally, I mean, it is so easy to see your money. Like you start with, I remember I had a $2,000 credit card. I'm like, this is going to be my Amazon FBA credit card. That's it. I'm not using any other money, no other credit, nothing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use this. And it's so easy. You just see it. Now it's like $2,000. Are you kidding me? Okay. No, I need, bring it, So, I mean, you really see it add up relatively quickly. If you put the work in, you see it add up.
Yeah. Yep. Without the risk, without the anxiety that can come with it. Yeah.
Or minimal risk. Let's say minimal risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when ran his garage, it was like, I'm not going to open the store today because it snowed. Nobody's bringing their car in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you have a blizzard in Washington, D.C., and you don't have customers walking through your door, well, you got to figure out how you make that rent money.
Yeah.
Whereas I go on a Christmas cruise, and when I have internet service, I look at my seller account to see how well my sales are because I'm still making income.
Yeah.
So
you can always buy OA and send to a prep center and keep it going
correct.
no matter where you are.
To recap, Jimmy and Rain both transitioned out of the service, Rain into a job, and Jimmy into entrepreneurship, with starting with eBay and then transitioning into Amazon, and kind of led the way so that he could get Rain into it when he needed some assistance. And so we also talked about how when you're getting out of the service that there are some helpful resources, but most of those entail upfront money, such as franchisee services or maybe a retail storefront. Whereas with Amazon FBA, I mean, you can start with as little as $100 or even less with the free tools that are out there, plus all of the instructional videos on YouTube and that sort of thing to get you started. Down the road as you get more proficient in it, of course, you can always pay to go into a mastermind group or something along those lines to learn more or to specialize, like in wholesale, that sort of thing. But for the most part, it's free information, easy to get into, and pretty low risk compared to some of the other options that are out there.
And then to add on to what Jeff said, that connection, Jimmy, you kind of talked about that you had transitioned from the military, that you definitely missed the paycheck, but that you really missed the people, that was really the sense of loss. And you kind of went through that process when it was all about survival. But then on the other side, you kind of took the first opportunity you could to reach out to a fellow service member, to kind of introduce them to that opportunity as well. And, really, there's so many reasons, like plentiful reasons why this is such a great opportunity for service members. And, some of the things that we've already talked about, the information that service members are given about starting a business, whether or not those are feasible or puts them closer to their goal. Unfortunately, I don't feel like they do. Opening a franchise, I don't feel like really accomplishes that. But, we were all talking a little bit earlier about, some of the reasons why this is an ideal pursuit. This is something that's worth their time. Among that was that it requires little to no financial risk. And really within the Amazon seller community, best practices encourages a limited initial financial investment. People that are reputable would never encourage new sellers to dump $5,000 on, I don't know, cell phone accessories. It just wouldn't happen. That would be so that would contradict everything that really comes out of the reputable community. Other things, that skill set, challenge that when you're transitioning out of, you're going to come out with the skills that you went in for originally when you were a kid. That maybe that's not going to be the skills that you need or want to put you into a career that's going to be fulfilling, not just punching a time card. That what might have limited you in the private sector might not limit you when we're talking about e-commerce. That's not really going to be a challenge that you need to overcome. Provides that option to work fully or even partially from home. When we're talking about service members that are transitioning out, especially like our colleague Angie, her husband Zach is now deployed for the second time in 2 years, and to come home and say, now go open up a franchise. Angie, you'll see him next spring. When we're talking about service members, why can't we put an opportunity in front of these men and women that brings them home if that's where they want to be? Or maybe they don't want to be home. They can go out. It can be where they want to be, and even, or like Jeff, live on the road full time if that's what they want to do, but give the service member the option to make that whatever they want it to be. Allows for those mistakes to be made without absolute financial ruin and devastation. You know, Jimmy, you were able to, you know, buy those cell phone accessories at a time where you didn't have the luxury of, you know, money to play around with or even time. This has that flexibility to learn, because you're going to make mistakes. You know, you're going to fall in the ditch, and hopefully you'll be able to figure your way, or have a friend that's, you know, going to say, well, here's how to correct that, and here's what to do in the future, or where you went wrong. But it allows for that. Allows for the inclusion of family members, especially kids, to be involved in that business. Business owners are able to accelerate or decelerate as needed. You know, you want to speed it up, you need to generate additional income, speed it up. You want to slow it down, and you're not going to have people knocking on your door like, well, why aren't you open? And, or you're the franchise owner, you know, kind of coming after you and expecting a certain number of hours. You can do with it what you want to do with it. You know, it's entirely up to that person. But we've really brought this together, this, you know, the four of us together, and really, obviously, the two of you, because there is something to be said for that connection, that unspoken trust that occurs between service members, and that the learning curve and how one approaches being an entrepreneur is different for a service member. Service members are made, are wired, are comfortable in that mindset, and are driven. And I see so much potential there to be able to connect, to have people connect with others that are feeling that lack like you did when you transitioned. You know, it's not the same, you know, obviously, as when you were in the service, but still connected, and advocating for each other and watching each other's backs, and at the same time the people are reaching their financial goals and professional goals. Can you talk a little bit about that, about what how you would envision that benefit?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, when it comes to fellow service members, I mean, I want to pass on information that I did not have. It is, when you separate, I mean, it's an uphill battle, and you are the only one fighting it. Whereas when you were in the military, you felt you had the people to the left and the right of you right there by your side. You know, being an entrepreneur, doing Amazon FBA, it's not for everyone. But like I said, as you had mentioned, you can go as big as you want with it. Like, you know, like for instance, me, I mean, I envision myself operating a multi-million-dollar company eventually. Or you can go as small as you want with it. I mean, if you're someone that did 4 years in the military and you're separating and you basically want to use your GI Bill benefits, you know, that's going to pay for your school, that's going to give you a little bit of money to live off of. Not enough. Amazon FBA is a great opportunity to kind of bridge the gap. You know, you can make a little more. You can make, you know, a little more to kind of cover everything you need. If it's something where you want to spend more time with your family, and you know you don't have the financial resources to go and open up that Subway sandwich restaurant or whatever, by all means, go for it. You know, but this is kind of something. It's low risk and the potential for high return. You know, like I mentioned earlier, what you put in is what you're going to get out. So if you bust your butt and you really do everything you need to do, it is a very rewarding path. And like I said, it's not hard, and it's something that it should be explained to. It should be an option, basically. You know.
So knowing what you know now, what do service members need to become successful entrepreneurs? I mean, what did you need? What would have been, you know, helpful as you were making your journey? You know, and the journey continues, you know, it does for all entrepreneurs, but what would have been helpful at the beginning for you as you started?
I mean, what would have been really helpful for me me is knowing where to turn for advice, to have just a little bit of help. I mean, when we started doing this, we didn't have anybody to help us along. And, you know, having information available that people can get to, you know, people like me, finding like-minded people with similar backgrounds. I mean, that would have been very big for us, because, I mean, it's a long learning curve. I mean, even after we were up and running, I've learned a lot along the way. I mean, you know, this is going into my third year, and, you know, this fourth quarter, I learned things to look out for next fourth quarter. And I think that, you know, all you need to do as a former service member, spouse, family member, whatever you are, to be successful, you have to have the desire. I mean, this is something that you're going to have to want to do, because you have to put the work in. And I think if you have the desire, you have a little bit of capital to invest, and you have some information, you can turn into a very successful person at this business.
Anything you want to add to that, Ryan?
I agree with what Jimmy said. I mean, yeah, you got to have that desire. This is, like I said, nothing comes easy. Yeah. You know, this does not come easy. And like I said, I mean, I'm sure there are some people that can do this while sitting on a beach in Cancun or something, but I'm not at that level yet. I'm sure we all want to be.
So close. You're close. I can feel it.
But it's one of those things, and kind of like in the military. I mean, we're not going to get. Don't expect a lot of recognition from your friends and peers. I mean, I tell people, you know, I own an Amazon business. They're like,
"What is that?
What is that?" Like, and you know, you basically got to tell them, "Look, I own a store that's open 24/7 that sells to people all around the world. That I own a department store open 24/7."
It's so
that's
shocking. People don't know, like, Amazon Marketplace. Like, I'm pretty sure my mother still tells people that I work for Amazon. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. I work for Amazon. Yeah, either you work for Amazon or, but it's now I just tell people, no, I own a department store open 24/7 selling to people all around the world.
It's pretty awesome.
There we go. And they still don't get it, but you know.
Sometimes you just gotta walk away. Be like, yep.
Yeah, I'm paying my bills. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. You know, yeah, that's a great goal to have, and I think goal setting is very important when you're an entrepreneur. So so you're working towards something, and those are, you know, they're constantly changing as you reach those goals. You're always setting more goals, and you know, eventually with this type of an industry, you can get to the point where, you know, using prep centers and you have your own private label products or wholesaling, you can do it from the beach. Only you have a Wi-Fi connection, you're set.
Or from a Winnebago.
Oh yeah. Or leisure travel van.
Do you have a fancy horn, Jeff?
Yep. No, I wish we did. We really need to get one. The horn on this thing, it's a Mercedes, but the horn on it is pathetic.
You can find one on eBay.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up, just like a little bit of a pay it forward, just what piece of advice could you give? What's the one thing that you wish somebody would have told you in the first 6 months? Just one really good, solid gem.
I would say when you learn the data, when you learn how to read the data, rely on it. Like, use it to your advantage. I mean, historically speaking, you know, there were some times where I wish someone had said, you know, if the data is correct, then go ahead. You know, you can go a little bit deeper on a product. You can expect to make this much money on a product. That's what I wish someone had told, instead of kind of just like, you know, like I said, there were some times where I was kind of hesitant a buy, even though the data, especially in the beginning, the data showed that this was a good buy. You know, historically, it's an in-demand product, but for some reason, I don't know, I was just kind of hesitant, and those are some of my regrets.
What about you, Jimmy? Advice you wish you would have received in the first 6 months?
I wish there had been somebody around to tell me to keep good records. One of my very big shortcomings was maintaining a mileage log or putting all of my receipts in one place.
Like InventoryLab?
Like InventoryLab. My big issue is I'd get in the car and drive, and I'd write the stuff down and then I would lose the paper. So I basically had to pull out receipts, divide them up by month throughout the year, and kind of map quest and be like, all right, about 120 miles. That looks right for this trip. Even though the side streets and everything probably made it more like 150, but better record keeping for the purposes of taxes.
Oh my gosh, you're speaking my language right now. Jeff can tell you in webinars, I reference it in every webinar that we do for the, like a walkthrough webinar. Like, I was the person that had a pad of paper in the van that I never remembered to write on, and an app on my phone that I never remembered to put anything on, but bringing it all together, not having like data piecemealed all over the place, bringing it all together in one place so that you know where you stand as a business. Yeah, you're totally speaking my language right now. That's great advice.
That's why I have Mile IQ now.
Oh, yeah.
Good thinking. Good thinking. Okay, so before you wrapped up, I know we've covered so much. Your backgrounds in the service, and now your roles as entrepreneurs and where you are now, and really just like that value of connecting with other service members. And, so our call to action, is really what we need to get to. But before we do that and kind of wrap everything up, any closing words?
I just really appreciate this opportunity to share the good news of FBA with fellow service members, family members. Thanks to you guys. I'm very appreciative of InventoryLab for sending you guys to a conference so I can meet you guys and we could build this friendship together. InventoryLab, great product. I cannot see my business functioning without it. So, hey, thanks to you guys for taking the time out of your schedule to put this on as well. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Are you kidding? It's been so great. It's been just getting to know you guys has been great, but I'm so glad we were able to do this.
I'd like to add to that. Within the InventoryLab, I think when Jimmy first told me to get InventoryLab, I had looked at some of the other softwares. Okay, yes and no. Some of them were more, some were less, some were around the same as far as cost. But as far as usability, it's easy to use. I couldn't see my business functioning without it. I can go in every morning and I can see, or every week or whatever. Okay, this is how my business is doing this week, this month, this year. This is where I am this year as opposed to last year. This is my my most profitable item. This is where I'm losing money. It's all right there in front of me, really easy to use. I'm happy with it. And if I ever have any issues, you guys make it easy enough where I can hound you and they say, hey, now. So that's the greatest option. I can literally, reach out to you guys, say, hey, fix this now.
Yep.
So I'm happy.
We love having you. We really do. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you guys. And
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Likewise. Thanks a lot. I can't say enough about you guys for doing this. So thanks again.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Your time is invaluable, and we're thrilled to be a part of it. I'll go ahead and wrap this up. If you have not checked your email already, viewers of this webinar, please do so. We're going to have a live broadcast Q&A with Jimmy and Ryan, as well as Angie, InventoryLab customer champion. She's going to be joining us as well, and as well as Bill. also with our InventoryLab team. And we're going to have a panel discussion to respond to your questions. So check your email. You're going to have a link there to be able to submit those questions via SurveyMonkey. And we're going to have all those together. So even if you're not able to attend the webinar, maybe we'll answer your question. But the seats are going to be limited. So if you would like to attend on January 29th, please go ahead and get registered because we only have, I believe it's 100 seats. So make sure you get your name in there. But if not, we're going to have it recorded and maybe we'll answer your question anyway. But even beyond that, keep an eye out for the next installment in this webinar series. When we all kind of got together and looked at the information we wanted to be able to provide, it kind of it expanded, and we really have topics that need their own webinar. So we're going to go take some deep dives into the experience of spouses and partners of service members and starting businesses, and we're going to look at maybe things like becoming an entrepreneur before transitioning and what that can look like, and setting yourself up for success and eliminating all of the other issues that we've kind of talked about today. So but beyond that, I mean, really your questions are going to be what's going to drive the content in the future. So we're going to keep an eye on those. We're going to see what it is that information is needed within the community, and we're going to support Jimmy and Rayan in providing that. They're also looking at options as well, creating spaces where conversations can take place, where service members can be available to support other service members and lend a hand in reducing that learning curve of becoming an e-commerce entrepreneur. And we're really excited to be able to support them in doing that. But check your email, get those questions in, and we hope to see you on January 29th. Thank you so much, Jimmy and Rayan. It's just been a pleasure. It's just been an absolute pleasure getting to know you guys since October, and of course this. It's been awesome.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.